Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee in Middle Earth. We got a heck of a storm raging outside today, so I got a fire going in here so I stay warm. And I wanted to do a video for you guys today on one of my interpretations of something that took place in the Lord of the Rings books. Now, there is quite a bit of difference between the movies and the actual source material out of the book. I'm a bit of a purist. I always revert back to the book, and I do like the movies. For one of the reasons I like the movies is it brought a lot of people into Tolkien's world. That's one of the reasons why I like the movies. But when you read the book, any work of fiction, you're going to have your own interpretation of certain things. And one of the things that I noticed early on when I read Lord of the Rings years and years ago is one of the side effects of Frodo holding on to the One Ring was, I'm going to call it a gift of foresight, and dare I say even prophecy, because there were several passages in the book that were more or less prophetic down the road. And I'm actually going to read a couple of them little quick passages to you guys and explain it to you. Now, the first one here, it's not really said in the movies, but in the book, there's a large expanse of time when Frodo first acquires the One Ring till the time of the Fellowship of the Ring. So at this particular point, what I'm going to read you here, at this particular point, Frodo has already had the One Ring for literally years. So I'm going to read this to you here. But half unknown to himself, the regret that he had not gone with Bilbo was steadily growing. He found himself wandering at times, especially in the autumn, about the wild lands, and the strange visions of mountains that he had never seen came into his dreams. He began to say to himself, "Perhaps I shall cross the river myself one day," to which the other half of his mind always replied, "Not yet." So that is the first account in The Lord of the Rings, and there's going to be some spoilers in this, so if you've never read the book or watched the movies, you know that sort of ahead of time. That is one of the first, if it isn't the first point in the story when Frodo's starting to get a gift of foresight. He's starting to get a prophetic side effect of holding the ring, because he's never seen mountains, but now he's having visions of mountains, and he actually climbs a couple of different sets of mountain ranges later in the book. And then crossing the river is sort of the crossing the river is always sort of the beginning of the journey. That's how I took it. When he's really getting into the journey is when he first crosses that river. Now, another thing that's not in the movies, but's in the book, there's a guy by the name of Tom Bombadil. And Tom Bombadil rescues the hobbits from trouble that they get themselves into, and they spend several days with Tom in his house. And Frodo has a dream, and this dream is prophetic because this dream actually does take place later in the book, and I'm going to read that to you here too. That night they heard no noises, but either in their dreams or out of them, he could not tell which, Frodo heard a sweet singing running in his mind, a song that seemed to come like a pale light behind a gray rain curtain, and growing stronger it turned the veil all to glass and silver, until at last it was rolled back, and a far green country opened before him under a swift sunrise. What Frodo's having a vision of there is Valinor. That is the Undying Lands. That's where the elves retire to when they grow tired of Middle Earth. It is the place that is reserved for the elves, and very few mortals have ever set foot in the Undying Lands. But that is Frodo's vision, and that is actually what happens to Frodo later in the story. And I always took this. When I read this particular passage and the other one that I'm going to read you as well, I always took that as basically a vision of heaven, a mortal's vision of heaven. And a little bit later, after Frodo gets reunited with Gandalf, and they are in the Council of Elrond, Gandalf was telling them why, because Gandalf was supposed to go with the hobbits at the beginning of the story, and he never made it. And he's finally telling the story now, well, what happened to him? And he was going on that he was basically kidnapped and held prisoner. And this is how Frodo responds after he hears this news. "I saw you," cried Frodo. "You were walking backward and forward. The moon shone in your hair." Gandalf paused, astonished, and looked at him. "It was only a dream," said Frodo, "but it suddenly came back to me, and I had quite forgotten it. It had come to me some time ago, or after I left the Shire, I think." Again, it's that gift of prophecy. It's that gift of foresight that Frodo now has, because I feel he's holding on to the One Ring. And another little side story of that is Gandalf also has a ring of power. So it's implied in the rest of the book, but it's never really said 100%, but it's implied that the wearers of the rings all have sort of a telepathic link between them. And again, because Frodo's holding the One Ring, he would have that same link because Gandalf has a ring as well. And now we're going to jump to the very end of the book. And the very end of the book actually mirrors what took place in that earlier passage, and it confirms Frodo's gift of prophecy at the very end. And this is at the end when Frodo actually sails west. "Then Frodo kissed Merry and Pippin, and last of all Sam, and they went aboard, and all the sails were drawn up, and the wind blew, and slowly the ship slipped down the long gray firth, and in the light of the glass of Gladriel that Frodo bore glimmered and was lost. And the ship went into the high seas and passed into the west, and until at last, on a night of rain, Frodo smelled a sweet fragrance in the air and heard the sound of singing that came over the water. And then it seemed to him that as if in his dream in the house of Bombadil, the gray rain curtain turned all to silver glass and was rolled back, and he beheld white shores, and beyond them a far green country underneath a swift sunrise." And that place that he's talking there, that's Eldamar. That's the plain in Valinor. And that's where Frodo and the other members of the Fellowship of the Ring eventually all retire to at the end of their days. They go to the Undying Lands. And like I said earlier, it is I feel probably one of the best descriptions of a mortal first seeing heaven that there's probably out there in any type of literature today. But anyway, I always thought that Frodo had that prophetic vision, and the reason that was there is because his holding on to the One Ring. And I wanted to do a video on my interpretation of that. I hope you guys enjoyed that. They're reading some little snippets out of the source material to sort of explain my point of view. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee in Middle-earth. Hope you guys got a little entertainment out of this story here today. And you guys have a good one.